Welcome to the India ICCA project. Our ICCA India team studies innovations in cancer care by looking at firms and how they behave and the industrial changes around them. We are really asking what kinds of institutional design would make it more likely that we could end up in a system where low-cost, early and effective interventions in cancer care are possible.
CBS is a host to many multidisciplinary projects. In fact, we take on projects that go across the entire biological scale, from looking at molecules to looking at ecosystems. And each one of these is addressed with a multidimensional and multidisciplinary perspective, because biology itself is a series and set of problems which require multidisciplinary engagement.
From the perspective of the last 15 years of work that I've done, is I think innovation is anything that has the power to make our lives better, that brings value to the lives of the user. The twin brother or the twin sister of innovation is translation. So in some way, innovation, the word itself has translation inherent in it, in a sense that you may have a new idea of how do you design a new product, or how do you create a new range of streets in a local community. How do you bring creative arts into the community? Or how do you solve a problem in a society? But the implementation part of that new idea is part and parcel of the innovation process. And translation, therefore, is the pathway for realization of the value that the innovation that you have thought about, right?
We think that design brings a very practiced set of strategies to innovation by bringing a powerful, imaginative and synthesis quality to innovation, which is often missed out in what we may call as structured innovation. So the future always involves risk. The future always involves imagination. The future always imagines a certain level of creativity in order to be able to comprehend what is yet not there.
So there is this whole, new area which is emerging, where you are kind of using different skilled people to do some of those things. For instance, one example could be something that we had worked on, where ultrasound machine which is designed to be used by a midwife and not a sonographer.
If you look at medical device innovation, we don't have a single company out there which is on the global stage that is recognized for its R&D presence. Whereas if you look at many other countries like the US or UK, there's at least 20% of their central government R&D spending is towards healthcare innovation. Others have spoken of in the past too about this inverted duty structure, where sometimes it's just cheaper to import like a whole machine than to sort of try and assemble it here and actually try and innovate and come up with something, right? You have to import them, and because there are these duty structures, it affects the overall cost of your own innovation.
I'm still a big fan of technology. I still have faith in the upcoming technology to try and see whether there are other solutions beyond what we've already discussed, beyond the HPV DNAs, beyond the mammographies, and look at other point of care devices, for example, something which can use telehealth better. So there are plenty of advances that are happening in technology now, and I wouldn't think that it is impossible for this problem to be solved using technology. But what we currently have is the fact that none of those traditional existing technologies are serving us very well in a population as large as India, with the health resources as they exist in India.
The medical devices innovation is a very user-driven innovation, where the surgeons, the anesthetists, the nurse, They work very closely. They come up with the ideas because they are using the instruments. You will always find, for example, when I was working, basically the training or the product knowledge given us by a nurse based in Singapore. And she used to tell us like how to use the catheter. And then these are the individuals which tells the companies, okay, why don't you modify the product in such a way? But that to happen, you need that close ecosystem relationship. In terms of challenges, so just to add the procurement, finance, trade policy, I will say regulation policy, and the lack of this close ecosystem of innovation. These are the further makes it complicated in Indian context to develop the medical device innovation. There is so much potential in Indian terms. There are brilliant, we have all the skills, we have all the technologies which can be developed in Indian context. What it needs supportive policy environment, both sides on the health and industry. What we need, a dynamic VC culture and good public sector investment and ambitious private sectors. The existing industrial groups have ambition for the medical device and diagnosis.
I think it's very important that we ensure that there is a documentation of everything that we've learned so far, and that when we think about innovation policy, that we need to think of all these different policies that need to be aligned.
Open communication between researchers, between entrepreneurs and clinicians to really, decide what we actually need, because we are all a team basically, but we all work in our own silos, completely isolated. So for example, I'll give you my example. The Indian breast tumors have a lot of androgen receptors, which I had no idea about. And this kind of high AR is not being seen in Caucasian population. So this is our problem. The solution has to come from within India by our research. And we are not, sitting 50 years back where technology was not evolved. We are all trained abroad. We have come back with all the expertise. We can do what is needed here. But this open communication has to be there between clinicians, entrepreneurs, and researchers.
It is important to see where the innovation is coming out from, who it is meant for, who is deriving value out of it, and finally, what are the outcomes of those innovations. So if you're saying that it's a power to make, it has a power to make our lives better, how do you define better?
One of the biggest gap is, can we come up with a system which allows for people involved around a particular problem to really work and embark on things which require a multidisciplinary approach, or things which will also allow a incentivization.
One of the things that we need to put in at the level of training medical graduates and postgraduates, see, of late, there is a lot of cross-talk between researchers and physicians. There's a lot of science teaching that is happening in medical curricula. But then there is little about entrepreneurship or economics or policy that is discussed during medical teaching.
So in these areas, the kind of curriculum that is there has to be revised very often in these days. Maybe every third year the curriculum has to be revisited. That will actually make things relevant to what is there. Today, what is being taught in the school, in the engineering schools, is some of it is actually not relevant because it's actually past tense and we no longer use it. The fundamentals, yes, are required. So something like basic science and basic social science and economics, these are required for every student, irrespective of which discipline, even if they want to become a doctor by profession, it's required. But specifically in these changing times, revisiting the curriculum syllabus has to come at much faster pace, which is not coming.
engaging with Smita Srinivas has brought in a completely different and distinct angle to us. She brings in a dimension from the economics perspective and how it intersects with public health and the health sciences. NCBS has, of course, always opened its doors to thinking about these kinds of engagements and expanding its horizons by creating the possibilities for a project like the ICCA project that Smita is houses at the NCBS. And so NCBS is actually delighted to play a host to this project and ensure that the disciplines that Smita and the project bring also expand our own horizons.
Medical device and diagnostics, there is no one discipline involved in any of development. You get electrical knowledge, you need electronical software knowledge, you need biological, you need chemistry, and I think that's what also makes it more interesting to work with the team. As it's a cross-disciplinary area which need a cross-disciplinary team to make research.
Whole area of palliation and survivorship, I think, has been completely underplayed. Probably in the world of cancer care, which has tended to be focused on treatment, but very definitely in the much smaller world, which is thinking about industrial inputs to this. So that's been a real process, and all that I think really does falls into a multidisciplinary work.
The solutions of today are going to need a multidisciplinary approach to solve them. And so having the economics perspective that just lets us know what issues are beyond just the straightforward science. And so biological problems now are going to involve economics. They're going to be problems of sustainability, of resource allocation, and so it's going to need that economics input. And ICCA has been able to show us how that would work. And so it's been a very fantastic template for bringing in the public health, for bringing in the economics, for bringing in sustainable development. And this is something that would be important for our academic program, having our students get this appreciation of this economics perspective to be able to have a much more holistic solution to the problems that the world is facing.
Be sure to watch the next video and other materials from the ICCA India project.